Recording in progress.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting on August 23rd of the Board of Directors for the Kitsap Public Facilities District. And I'd now like to call that meeting to order. Welcome, Tom. Good to have you in as well. For the question that I'd like to start off with tonight, I'd like to kind of bring us back from summer and ask the time that you spent with someone special or a memory that you created this summer, if you would be willing to share that with the board. So anybody want to start us off?
I will.
All right, Tom.
So we just did a work retreat over the weekend, and we did a 14,000 foot peak in Colorado, and it was a great bonding opportunity. We always work together and don't really have that much fun or sense of adventure. So it was a pretty cool accomplishment, and we had a lot of fun together too.
That's awesome. What was the name of the peak?
Gray's Peak, GRAY''S.
By the way, not to interrupt, I think John Morrissey's in.
Yep, I was just promoting him to panelist.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you, Phil. I'll go next. One memory that I got to create this summer in a special time, my youngest son and I went to the Boundary Waters, which is this area in northern Minnesota, which is sort of like our Olympic National Park. It's a huge amount of acreage where no one lives. There are no roads. But there are all these lakes throughout this area. And so you take a canoe, you paddle across the lake, and then you get to the end of the lake and you take this portage through a trail. You get to the next lake, you paddle through that lake, and you get out a few lakes and, nobody's there. And so one picture, one video that I have even from then is Kwame and I are paddling through the lake, and there is a bull moose that, is on the edge of the lake. And the moose looks at us and we look at the moose, and Kwame says, "Dad, I think we should stop paddling because we're trolling and we're fishing behind." And so we start back paddling and the moose swims right in front of us. And I've got it on camera where I've got his face, like just eyes big, checking out this moose as it swims in front of us. But that'll be a great memory that we'll remember. And it was a great time with him. So that's one I'll share. John, I don't think maybe you heard this, but I'm asking, throughout the summer, what's a special time that you got to spend with someone, or what's a memory that you created over the summer?
I got a few of them. I think the highlight of my summer, though, was after I guess it would have been last meeting. I had just gotten back from my 70-mile trip through the Bailey's Range, doing a subsection of the Olympic Mountains that probably 200 people do a year. Group of 4. It was a great time. Unforgettable. Won't do it again. When I'm on one side, there's a part between Cat Peak and Mount Carey called the Catwalk. Comes to find out, we did it wrong, but there was a point in time I was hanging onto the side of a wall with a 60-pound pack on my back, with probably 500-foot drop-off right below me.
Oh. I don't like heights, yeah. Okay, I'll go next. I had something kind of spectacular. It actually happened where you can see behind me on the photo I used for my backdrop. But we were out here one Friday night with a bunch of neighbors just sitting around and enjoying the beautiful weather. And the orcas came right up to the shore here. And we all grabbed our cameras and they just frolicked right here in the water right behind us. It was really super high tide. And, you take the ferry and you're always looking to see a little glimpse. And I just figure that's probably the one time I'll ever get that close to orcas again. So that was pretty fantastic.
That is really cool, Aaron. Aaron, what approximately was the date? Because as a fisherman, I want to know when that run is coming through that the orcas are a lot smarter than us about.
Yeah. When was the date? Maybe about 6 weeks ago. Yeah,
Okay.
I guess.
All right.
I don't know. Summer's a blur.
All right. Thanks. Walt or Phil?
I'll go next. In July, I had about a 2.5 week visit from my 16-year-old granddaughter who lives in England. And this was the first time she's made the trip on her own from, without her parents. And so she decided she was old enough and she had time off from school. So she flew from London to Seattle on her own. And it looked to be a fairly uneventful trip. And then about 3 hours out of Heathrow, they had mechanical problems about halfway across to Iceland. And they had to turn around and go back to Glasgow, Scotland and land. And so she got stuck in Glasgow for several hours while they did repairs to the aircraft. And then they took off again. And the second try was pretty much uneventful, but she was due in at 4:00 in the afternoon and didn't get in until 9:00 at night and didn't clear immigration and customs and all till 10:00 at night. So we had a long evening over at SeaTac waiting for her to emerge, but she ultimately got here and we had a wonderful visit with her.
Hey, that's a pretty cool thing that you got a 16-year-old granddaughter that wants to come and see you for that long of a trip.
Yeah, well, I live here. I'm her granddad on her father's side, and her grandmother on her mother's side also lives here in town. So we shared her while she was here.
Thanks for sharing, Phil.
Yeah. We had a good time, just the family, the kids, and we went up actually to the Ape Caves by Mount St. Helens. And it was on that day, it was the record day of 110, 112 degrees. And I think we were the only people in the area that were in sweatshirts because it's a nice, cool 42 degrees down, under the ground in these gigantic lava tubes. So it was a pretty cool experience. Hadn't done it before. I'd done big caves over in Europe and all. This was totally different. It was really neat. And my wife had actually picked up the wrong kind of flashlight. Instead of a regular flashlight, she brought kind of a blue light or black light, which if you ever do it, bring it. It's neat because you start shining it and you start seeing all the chemicals and everything's all like completely, phosphorescent up in there. So it's kind of a unique kind of side of things that we hadn't seen before. So anyway, that was our big outing, I guess, for the summer, versus an actual trip. So, but it was a good time.
That sounds really interesting. That sounds like a good visit. I'd much rather do that than what John did of hanging off a cliff.
Right.
So
Yeah.
maybe we'll put that on the trips to do. Brian, how about you?
Well, nothing as enervating as John's depiction of hanging on a tree on the catwalk between Mount Carey and I forget the other terminus, which I did decades ago, John. So as soon as you started talking about it, I was going, oh my God, yes, I know exactly what that's like. And you don't want to look down when you're doing it. Or nothing as exciting as Ape Caves or Tom's ascent of Mount Gray. Mine was at my house. I've got 3 sons in their 30s. They all have their children. It's so hard to get any of them together. And we got every single one of them in our house for a weekend. And it was absolute chaos and fun every minute. We had people, we didn't have enough beds. It didn't matter. Anyway, with babies, it didn't matter. It was just a blast. So
Sounds fantastic.
yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, I didn't have any family excursions or incursions, but I was able to travel for the first time in a year and a half, just over to Spokane for the Washington Economic Development Association summer conference.
You don't get brownie points for saying this.
What?
Your highlight, your memory was going to the economic development conference.
Yeah, I got to stay.
Okay, all right.
Historic Davenport Hotel in downtown
All right.
Spokane.
All right.
It's a Renaissance masterpiece, and the food was fantastic. You know, the conference was run-of-the-mill economic conference, but the trip was exciting. I mean, I rented cars, I drove across the countryside, I flew across a whole half-hour flight across Washington. So, hey, it was exciting for me.
All right.
Mike also earned multiple medals. Why don't you share the results of that, Mike?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Oh, there is that. But of course, I do that every year, so it's not as exciting. Yes, I after a 2-year absence from the senior games here in Washington, the Washington State Senior Games held down in Tumwater and in Olympia. For the first time, I did a double. I participated in the basketball events as well as the track and field events. So I had to switch between venues. So that was exciting. I had to drive, 10 minutes in one direction and compete, and drive back and compete on the track and field. So I wound up in total winning 9 medals. There were two silvers and 7 bronze medals in both track and field and basketball.
Way to go.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll ask you sometime when it's just the two of us about the basketball medals. That's what I'm interested in. So, but I'll cover that later. Let's move on to agenda item number 2, the approval of minutes from last meeting. Would anybody?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving our minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And you can mark me as an abstain since I wasn't there. Thanks for that, Mike. All right, now it's time for public comment. We do have a number of attendees. So if any of you would like to make public comment, we allot you 3 minutes and we welcome you to speak to the board. So if anybody is interested, please raise your hand or make a note in the chat room and Mike will move you into the webinar. Would anybody like to make public comment? All right, seeing no hands or seeing nothing in the chat, we'll move on to agenda item number 4, our regional project update, and we want to welcome the Port of Bremerton and the Circuit of the Northwest to give us an update on their progress.
Thanks, Darren. Mike, are you be able to bring on, I think Brian's probably there, and Joel, Andy, and Bob. Anyway, while you're putting them on, I'll just get it started. So we are at about 30% design phase. We just got approval on those designs. And like I mentioned, Bob is from Blue Architect. He was part of the team, as well as Andy, Joel, and Brian from Circuits of the Northwest. We've got some good pictures to show you. We've got some significant advances since the previous design that you probably saw. Would include an amphitheater and a festival area. There's a technology pad. There's an innovation and education and automation center that they're adding, as well as an RV area and a hospitality village. So we'll talk a little bit about that process and how that's going. So I am going to go ahead and turn this over to Joel. And then once they do the presentation, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Looks like Joel doesn't have. There we go.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Jim. It's very nice to see you all again. I would keep it short. I know you guys have a lot on your agenda. So thank you, Jim. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing our group the opportunity to provide you with a progress update on the Circuit of the Northwest. We will be giving an update as to the current progress of Phase 3 public facilities being administered by the Port of Bremerton. As the board is aware, the development of the design for the public facilities at CNW has been funded by the Kitsap Public Facilities District in compliance with RCW 35.57.020, with funding being authorized under RCW 36.100. All elements are a result of the inclusion of a regional special event center, which includes a sport special event center and a community special event center with supporting facilities. I'd like to introduce you to my amazing team. Our lead architect and principal at Blue Architect, Bob Geit, is on in there. I see you, Bob. Hi, Bob. How are you? And Andy Girdham, who has helped us on Phase 2 and now on Phase 3. He is our co-project and program manager. So, Mike, if you could put up our PowerPoint presentation and share that to Andy Girdham, I would appreciate that. I think he's on mute.
I think Mike's on mute, yeah.
He's probably just
Mike,
talking about
you
his
are
economic development concert, so it's okay.
Mike, we can still not hear you.
I guess it would help if I unmute myself. So Andy, I did raise you to co-host, so you can actually share and do the presentation yourself if you have it up. If you don't, we can do it on through my sharing.
Yeah, I'd go ahead and bring it up if you could, Mike. That'd be great.
So at this point, I will turn over to Andy Girdham, who will be leading us through the Public Event Center's 30% design review. Thank you.
I'll wait till Mike gets it and then I'll start in.
Sure.
Okay.
Do appreciate everybody's time tonight, though. So I think we've got some interesting things to show you. I think that it'll be interesting. Is I'll probably leave most of it to Bob. I think Bob likes to talk more than me anyway. So, but so I'll let him do most of the talking. So.
Okay, share and there we are. Okay.
Okay, perfect. And we can start right there. Actually, go on to the next one if you would, Mike. So, as you can see, it's a 30% design review. We're here today to talk about. There have been a number of changes as we've gone along through this process. The whole concept was to really bring in the community event centers and the regional sport event center, like we talked about early on. We had a number of things we told you we would be incorporating into the overall design. I think we've done a pretty good job of that. It's in the early stages still, but I think that where it's going, we really like where it's going. I think it really brings something to the area. And I think it'll really have an impact for the community. So what you're seeing here, and what I'll do is I'll step through this a little bit, and talk about the different pieces. And then we'll get into more of the architecture that Bob will talk about. So if you come down just a little bit on that one, I think that they'll show me pretty good what the changes have been. That's good right there, Mike. So this is the overall master plan as we have it today. There are a few changes that are still not shown on this master plan. They're starting to be into the actual construction documents. We do a little bit more on computer modeling and bringing things in a little quicker as opposed to just working with just the graphics. So this is not showing a few things. But let me go through basically what the changes have been. So as you get into this, we found out that what was needed was we talked about creating in the community event area a amphitheater where we could have shows or really bring some really nice. And this is, it had major impacts to get this to accomplished. It had major impacts on the track, on the road course itself, because you see it has two stages. Obviously, the grading for the amphitheaters was a lot different than you would expect for the road course or for the area in general as it falls off over to the west. So what we've had to do is come in here and make some decisions. And you can see that right where the cursor is right there, we've taken out the entire carousel. So we've had to redesign the entire road course through this facility and make it more of the event center that we'd like it to be. So the event center is pretty cool because what it does is it creates a stage that just the one stage can handle up to 20,000 people, which is the main amphitheater there. Then we have a smaller amphitheater then that's over to the south, and that one is really there to handle small local groups, smaller entertainment venues. There will be some parking in between the two, and in that parking area we can do different types of special events as well. But it's really focusing now more on the entertainment side. We also have, of course, the Cstoc Theater. So as you're looking at this, numbers are still fluctuating a little bit of what the attendance could be at some of these events, but the main stage and the main amphitheater area could be about 20,000. We do have the capabilities to do about 4,000 over the Cstoc Theater. So as you look at what's happening in this area, you're starting to see about 20 to 25,000 potential visitors to the facility for entertainment acts. Obviously, that has created a number of changes to the overall design, not only in grading, but utilities. Utilities, we're putting a lot more people down there. We have verified that all the utilities can be served in the area. As from a standpoint of elevation differences and capacity that we can design, we do have some more checking, as you've seen in the progress reports, on the overall capacity of the system in general. And we'll get back to that later. As you go to the north, we talked about the technology pad. That's changed as well. And all these different little areas, these little events areas, we've already got conceptuals and all the different services for those areas as well. We've got the restrooms, we've got concession areas, things like that already conceptually planned. So those could be presented at any time as well. So we focus mainly on the stage and the big amphitheater area right now. Another area that has made change is the Center for Technology, Innovation, and Education and Automation. This came about from some discussions with some different OEMs in the area, and we have some ongoing things there that we're probably not ready to talk about yet, but some things that can go into that area to serve the public a little bit better from the educational standpoint. Besides that, I think there was a discussion about the motocross. Motocross has changed a little bit as well as the RV areas. And then as you come to the east, there's a hospitality village where the event parking is. That's more or less just a flat type of paved surface that has multiple uses, but it really ties in well with the Cstoc Theater because those two play really well together from a public standpoint. The Cstoc Theater can have different events going there, and then the parking is there to serve it, as well as the hospitality, as well as the restroom facilities. So I don't want to get too much into it beyond that. I will be available for questions. We will be after this if you have questions. But I think we really want to probably go along a little further. So if you could start going down through the slides a little bit. And you keep going. This is just talking about the community and regional event centers, like we talked about originally. Has been some change to the pedestrian areas and access points. but we are still serving all the access to those facilities, and we made it better. So it's not just a walk-in facility anymore. This is just the promises that we made early on, and I think that we can skip through these. I think everybody knows what we were trying to accomplish in those areas. We could talk more about those later if there's questions. So this is really, kind of another growth of the master plan. So you see that where the Cstoc Theater is going to be, and like I talked about, that's a 4,000 seat venue. You got the different parking areas and the different hillside seatings. As you space down a little bit more, you'll see that the regional sporting event area has, ability to do a lot of auto events as well as festivals. You see that there's that 20,000 person venue for the amphitheater, and then there's a small venue on the other side as well as parking in that area. As you go down further and just keep spacing down a little bit, this gets back to the master plan again, and pretty much what we talked about. It's where the focus has been. One thing about the design and construction schedule, we originally got kind of a late start on it. We are catching up. I think currently with the schematic design, if you look at item number 10 there, it looks like it goes until 7/31. So we're pretty much on par with that. We might be a couple weeks behind. Nothing that I don't think we can't catch up on. So, and then you'll see the different pieces down through there on when things will be delivered. So right now, pretty much on schedule, maybe just a little bit behind, but we could catch that up. If you can keep on going, this, we talked about the overall design plan. You can see how it fits in with the amphitheater and everything. At the end of the day, this is more of a constraint issue of what's already in there with the existing dump and everything and how we're working around it. So really, if you go to the next one, this is really the start of Bob. And I tried to limit myself, so hopefully I gave Bob enough time. So Bob, you want to talk?
I am happy to follow up. I'm hoping to actually talk a little less than Andy did. It might be the first time in history that an architect talks less than an engineer.
Hey, I looked up. I didn't look at my feet.
But what we're looking at is one of the early views of the larger event center. And what our design goal here was to really tie it into the rest of the facility. But also, what we're seeing here is the stage set up for a performance with multiple LED screens and speaker towers and that kind of thing suspended from the primary stage cover. But one of our real design goals was to have those things be removable so that from that location, the track can become visible for additional events, or it can be a less formal type of performance without the giant rock and roll screens and the huge speakers. But essentially what we did is we modeled this stage setup from the gorge. So it is able to handle larger and smaller performance type groups and festivals. And the thing that I really like about how this is fitting together is that if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see some other views as well as the concessions area. But this entire area with the two stages at either end of the festival area and then a central concessions area works really well for performances as well as just general festivals where there can be a more casual performance going on at each end. A wine festival, a beer festival, car shows, all of those things can be going on. And we set up this central concession station with some high capacity bathrooms on either end, and then concessions on both sides of the building so that there is walk-up food service from both of the venues as well as the festival area. So, if you scroll through, you'll see a few additional views, I believe. But, essentially our goal was to make it consistent with the design of the rest of the facility, allow multiple events to happen simultaneously. There you see some very early plans, the upper one being the main stage, showing some of the loading dock, green room, dressing rooms, those kind of things. And then the concessions building at the bottom with a large central food service area, and then some pretty good sized restrooms that are supported by some smaller buildings off to the sides of the larger performance venue as well.
That's some heavy duty bathrooms, all right.
Well, you know, everybody wants to go at the same time in these events, and you know, you always hear complaining that they just didn't put in enough toilets. So you know, we're trying to get out in front of that and just be sure that we're really serving the community. So unless there are questions, essentially, you know, the look and feel is designed for maximum flexibility to lure in performers from all over the nation and world, and you know, really to allow this to be a true multi-use facility. As Andy said, the larger venue we set up with a grass and more formal seating area that is set up to accommodate roughly 20,000 people. We're actually a little over that, so the 20,000 would be fairly loose, casual kind of picnic seating, and that could actually go up a bit higher if we went to more formal seating. But all in all, the goal is to really make this a part of the Circuit of the Northwest that will see use, you know, throughout the year, and really be something that multiple events can be staged for.
Over on this side, there's a tunnel underneath the track.
Yeah, that's I'll talk a little bit about that. That's what I talked about for the major access point back up into the amphitheater area. It was important to be able to get more pedestrians and more cars through that area. So that's a 2-lane with walkways on both sides. So we'll refine that more as we go. Obviously, it's tough getting in, as you can see all these contours for the area, and it really adds up in elevation here. But what you'll see there is you got that tunnel. If you look at the top of the sheet, you'll see a pedestrian tunnel as well. If you keep going up right there. So that pedestrian tunnel as well, coming in from a parking area, which gets people back up. We have a little issue on how to get them back around to control access and into the ticket booths, or at least to the general gates, so we can, you know, control flow of people around the area. But overall, it's coming together. But you can see the challenge in trying to get just the right slope on the amphitheater, as well as getting flat spots out back toward the road course itself behind the amphitheater to handle all the transporters. So, but it's getting there pretty quick.
Well, thank you, Jim, and thank you, Joel. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Bob, for that presentation. And now, directors, just want to ask if you have any questions.
Is the amphitheater seating intended to be, you know, throughout your blanket and sit on the ground, or what's the plan for seating?
Well, the intent is that the grassy areas would be set up for more casual, exactly like you described, you know, picnics, bring your own lawn chair, that kind of thing. We have a paved area toward the front that could be set up with more formal folding seating to really increase the capacity.
Thank you.
And what's the orientation of that? I know, like you referenced the gorge, you know, you've got this great backdrop behind you. Is that oriented towards the mountains or towards territorial views? Just, you know, what's, again, part of the draw for the gorge was that. Are you guys going for a similar thing there too?
Well, we don't have quite the topography that the gorge does, but we do have views of the Olympic Mountains from that area, and those will definitely be visible from both of the performance venues.
Yeah, Phil, this faces, as you're looking at the stage, the mountains will be right behind the stage. So it's facing west, and it's beautiful view of the mountains from there. So if anybody gets a chance, I know there's a lot of clearing that's been done. So you really start to see it, be able to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I know that we had asked to have Director Aaron Leadham to be part of the planning process, and I haven't spoken with Aaron through the summer, but Aaron, have you been able to attend any of the planning meetings, or is that in the works for the next one?
Yeah, I've not been able to coordinate getting in on any of the conversations yet, but we will be doing that moving forward. I also have not gone out to see the clearing. So how much clearing has happened already?
Brian, you want to talk about that?
Unmute myself here. Yeah, good question, Aaron. We're in phase 2 of our harvest plan. So phase 2 of 3, I should say. So the first phase was cutting the track out of the forest. And then the second phase was clearing the special event area and the paddock and the regional sports center skills pad. So they're about halfway done. I know there was a drone that went up this last week to see exactly what was left. And so what was left is the special event center. It should be all done by September 18th. And actually, that would be a good day to come out. That's a Saturday. So I can get with you offline and send you an invitation if you want to come out and actually see the site. We're going to have an event out there. So, but yeah, it's looking pretty darn good right now.
Thank you, Mike. You anticipated my request. Shannon had a couple of questions, and I just wanted to give him the opportunity to voice those directly.
Oh, thank you. So I was just taking a look at what you have designed there, and I know that area fairly well, and I do a lot of work in Kitsap County for the county. And so a couple of things I was wondering about a traffic study. Has a traffic study been done for that level of impact? And if so, I can just see a bottleneck if you don't get some other access in and out of there. That's a lot of people. It's an exciting level of a lot of people, but you know how people are going to really complain if they can't get in and out of there quick and before and after an event.
You've been stuck in those lines, huh, Shannon?
Many times.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. We have not started it. What we've done is identified the elements of the traffic study. Of course, the traffic study was done previously. So we'll be expanding on that traffic study that was done. And we do, I think, have to include that additional access. Shannon, I don't know if you were online hearing about that, but
I was.
Okay, so that's starting to be a pretty important spot down there. Luckily, it has enough separation between that and the other light. So it looks pretty good. But, I'm a Holiday Inn traffic study guy. I can do it if I stay at Holiday Inn. But, right now, we need to get somebody to expand on that existing traffic study. So.
Yeah, there's been quite a bit of a change since your initial development of the property. So that traffic study is going to have to be updated to that. Right. So, and then Mike, just to address your bathroom question, the county has a formula that will require if this area has an occupancy of 40,000, they're going to do a math problem and tell you how many bathrooms you're going to have. So, and there's not much leeway around that. So we dealt with that with the stadiums at CK School District. So,
and Shannon, let me expand on that a little bit, if you don't mind. So
sure.
We'll do. These are obviously permanent restroom facilities. We have restroom facilities at all the different venues that you'll see come online. I don't think we'll ever have enough restrooms for the maximum capacity of the facility. We would supplement with temps. So we've got to get the average, right? And we'll go from there.
When you go in for permit, just put that in the permit, because I had to do that myself, because there's no way we were going to build enough restrooms to support a 3,000 person stadium.
Yeah, I love the warning.
For eight events a year, right? Yeah. So at least at CK. So
I love the warning. Thanks, Shannon.
No, it's just a heads up.
Shannon, is there a similar calculation for parking capacity?
Yes, there will be. And so they'll take that formula into account also. And that was my last question. And just observing from what I saw you had a big area that was blanked out up in the top left corner. It said parking. It didn't have a really number of capacity, what you were really looking at providing that way. You know, there's going to be, and I know you know this, it's ADA gets a certain percent. But for 20,000 people, for parking, I didn't quite see it on the plan, but I'm sure there is a plan. That's what I'm thinking. So
there's a plan. I would say it's not all on site. Yes. But an ADA is going to fit pretty well back up through the tunnel up into the parking area behind the concession areas. So that'll be your hard surface for ADA. So.
Yeah, with your events being so spread out as it was, you're going to have ADA close to almost every one of those event areas, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Jim, whenever possible, involve Shannon in any discussions when you have them out at the port about the final planning stages for this, because he's got all of the chapter and verse about dealing with the county and all their requirements. And I think he'd be a good asset to make sure he's involved in those discussions. And my only comment about the traffic is that absolutely needs to be solved, because on summer weekends, on Friday afternoon or Saturday morning, the highway between the Bremerton Airport and Hood Canal is full of people that are heading out for the weekend. And if you've got an event at the racetrack or at the event venue that's also going to draw in another 3 or 4 or 5 or 10,000 people, it's going to be a nightmare. So that absolutely has to get solved in the next 2 years. You're not going to solve Gorst in 10 years, but there has to be some better access along that highway stretch in order to alleviate that.
I think it serves everybody's purpose, doesn't it, Mike? So
yep.
That's absolutely right. So.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Directors, any more questions? Thank you for a great presentation. We appreciate your time, and thanks for giving us that progress report.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item number 5 on our agenda. And we are going to look at the South Kitsap ILA revision. Brian, would you just again give us a brief on what is being changed in the ILA? And Mike, if you would promote Nick into the conversation as soon as you are able to move all the other people out. I know that you're working.
Yeah, let me do that right now so Nick can be coming in while the others are going out. So go ahead, Nick, come on in.
Did we lose Brian in the midst of all that?
We did. Come on down. We lost John too. I don't know if they move around when I'm taking people out, and that may be what causes it.
All right, looks like we have Brian back.
Look like I'm back, yes.
John back.
Get John back.
You got Nick in.
John, are you back? Can you hear us? There we go.
Yep.
All right. Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you for just a brief of what is being changed again in this ILA revision.
Sure. So a month or two ago, our South Kitsap partner, Port Orchard, came and said they have an opportunity to purchase a property from Kitsap Bank. The ILA indicated that of the funding that the PFD would make towards the South Kitsap project, there would be $1 million allocated to property acquisition But the sequence of that was that the property acquisition was coming later in time and would follow a task where the project had reached 60% design, development, have cost estimates, and have submitted for a shoreline permit. What Port Orchard had asked for is that we basically flip those two tasks sequence so that now the property acquisition can proceed immediately before the 60% design, cost estimates, and shoreline permit. And the rationale was that there's a window of time available to Kitsap Bank to purchase the property from Kitsap Bank. And with a combination of funding from the Washington State Department of Commerce, a grant of $1.2 million, and the PFD's $1 million, and $300,000 from the city, which it says is available, they could complete that acquisition later this year. That was presented to the board. The board agreed to that in concept, with the notion that we would add a couple guardrails to that. And we in the new ILA, the important changes are in Exhibit B, which is the list of tasks, the allocation of money to the tasks, and the timing of those. So what we did in drafting this is we flipped task 3 and 4. So property acquisition is now task 3, and then we added what are called the deliverables, or the conditions for the release of the funding. In the prior ILA, the task for property acquisition just said at some point in time the PFD would grant this $1 million. So what we did now is we added again some guardrails, and if Mike has got you on task 3.1 under the ILA amendment, which is in Exhibit B, we've set forth a number of conditions, which I'll read to you from my screen and not the tiny screen I've got from Mike. But condition number 1 is that there actually be a signed purchase and sale agreement with Kitsap Bank for a not to exceed purchase price of $2.5 million. We've been told that the signing of the agreement is imminent, but it has not yet occurred. So that's condition number 1. Number 2, in addition to the upland property that Kitsap Bank owns, Kitsap Bank has a Department of Natural Resources lease for aquatic lands. That's the reference to DNR. It's important that in this acquisition that Port Orchard not only acquire the upland, but also the assignment of the DNR rights to use the aquatic land. So we've made the assignment of that DNR lease as a condition of funding. Thirdly, the Department of Commerce grant has set forth a number of conditions for their funding. And those are set forth in a email that we've identified here of June 21, 2021, between Beth Robinson of Department of Commerce and Nick Bond. So we've also said all of the conditions that DOC has imposed on their grant have to be satisfied as a condition of the PFD funding. Next is the city has represented that they would fund the gap between the grants from DOC and the PFD, and that would be $300,000. So as a condition further of funding by the PFD, we've said, okay, you will in fact have $300,000 to pay your portion of this. Finally, we've said the last condition of funding is that we actually have an escrow set up, which is common in commercial real estate transactions, where all of the purchase money goes into escrow, and when it's all there and all the conditions of escrow are satisfied, then the deed will go to Port Orchard, and the funds will go to Kitsap Bank. So we've said we want an escrow set up so that all the money that's needed for closing is in one place at one time as necessary. And then I've just added an additional note that said, if for some reason the PFD money is in that escrow, and if for some reason the closing doesn't happen, which is rare, very rare, but it does happen sometimes. As they say, sometimes there's a slip between the cup and the lip. If for some reason something goes haywire, the PFD money that is in the escrow comes back to the PFD. So, we're minimizing any risk of something going wrong and the money not coming back to the PFD. So,
thank you. Go ahead.
The city's folks have reviewed these conditions. Their lawyers reviewed these conditions, and it's my understanding that we're all on the same page.
Thank you, Brian, for such a thorough and quick analysis there, or a synopsis of what's changed. Directors, do you have any questions?
I just have one question. We referenced the email from Beth Robinson. I assume that's going to be attached to the document.
Great point, Aaron. I thought of that, but after I'd sent these out for review. So I would say yes. If you vote to approve this tonight, I would add that as a stipulation that we would add a copy of that email to the list of deliverables in task 3.1.
Any other questions?
Should that email be more of a memorandum of understanding or a letter on a letterhead of some kind and not just an email?
Good question. You have to ask the city. All they've provided me was the email itself. So if another more formal document, I would agree that should be there. But if all we have is the email, then that's what we have to live with.
Nick is in the discussion if he has an answer for that.
Yeah, I don't believe that a more thorough agreement is required. Department of Commerce has a standard grant agreement that we have to execute with them. And my understanding is they're preparing that and will be sending it to us. And it's a take it or leave it type thing. So I think all the pertinent details are outlined in that email. And as far as what Brian said, I agree with everything that he said. I think he characterized our agreement quite well.
Well, if there are no other questions, can someone word?
I do have one more question, Darren. Sorry.
Yes,
so the 2.5 million is a round number. I don't recall from our previous discussion of this. Has there been an assessment or appraisal done on the property, and is it valued at 2.5 million? And then second, should something be included in this language that that we abide by the appraised value of the property or in this transaction?
John Morrissey, it looks like you have an answer to that.
Yeah. So as part of the steering committee for this, I've get an update every other week. And so I've got some information, as well as knowing that this parcel of land is actually valued quite a bit higher. Part of what they're finalizing, and I believe they do have a finished PSA, but there's a lease back. The bank is not going to move out of their current building for a set period of time. I think that's what's still being completely finalized, but essentially we're trying to move this forward because it takes approximately 4 years. And once this is process is started, the time starts ticking. And so that was where some of this comes back. As part of the negotiated sale, and why we're getting, or the city is getting this parcel for so cheap, is that they're taking into account a lease back that the city's not actually going to pay back out. So that's already been prearranged. I believe Nick may have it in front of him, but I believe it was well north of 4, if not higher, on what the land was valued at. So, and there was a second part to your question, Tom.
Yeah, more directed at Brian, and maybe it's moot at this point. But if that should be, if there should be some language about the appraised value included, that it's not to exceed 2.5 million, or I'm just curious.
I don't think we care much about how much it's valued at. I think that's on the city, right? Brian did a great job at looking at this, knowing that it's going to go into escrow, working with escrow during my day job, knows that that pretty well protects us. Either this is going to go through or it's not.
And if I can add to what John described, the property did appraise for north of $4 million. And the purchase and sale agreement has been approved by the city council and signed by the mayor. It is with the bank waiting for the bank signature. And one of the contingencies that had to be removed was the assignment of the DNR lease. And so that's why the bank hasn't signed it yet. But they have started they've hired their architect and have started on designs for their new building next door. And so that is, we haven't had any design meetings with their team yet, but they are underway and beginning to program that future structure. So right now, the way that this is set up, we are aiming to close hopefully in October if everything goes as we think it will at this point in time.
Brian, any comment on Tom's question that you would like to speak to?
Not directly. We're not a direct party to the purchase and sale, but generally the city, any city in Washington or county or local government, in buying and selling property, has to meet a fair market value standard, based on an appraisal. So if this property didn't appraise out at that value, the city really would be in no position to enter into that purchase and sale agreement. So that was kind of my comfort level in not going further and conditions on that issue.
All right. With that, then, would someone word a motion to approve this revision of the ILA?
I make a motion to approve the South Kitsap Community Event Center ILA as presented.
And I think we needed wording for just that, as we would either put the email in that is referenced, or that there would be some more formal agreement, as Shannon had said, that might end up coming as well. How do you word that? Is that good enough?
Maybe you attach the email that's noted or a final document. What did you call it, Nicholas?
I find it to be unnecessary, as it's a deliverable for us to execute and hand over the money. So and I've seen the email, so I don't need it to be attached to this document.
Brian, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're trying to approve this tonight, the only attachment we can add now would be the email, because the other document doesn't exist. So if you wanted that other document, I don't think you could approve this tonight, because the document doesn't exist. So,
do you think it's needed based off of it already being a condition?
I'm going to give you a lawyerly answer. It depends. I was comfortable enough not attaching it, because we've identified it by date and by parties, and so it's to me it's a finite thing that can be found, and there wouldn't be a question or debate about what was met. That said, now I'll go the other way. If somebody wants to see what that document is, it's always nice to have one place where everything is that's relevant to an agreement. So, if
I was just going to say, from a contract administration perspective, which is what I would have to do, I don't want to have to go looking for what those are calling out. So if it was attached, it would be great. And I'm fine if it's an attached email.
Okay. So I think there's your answer. It would be better if we attached the email for ease of reference for those who work with the document.
Would you word your motion, John, with the exact same words, but just with the additional email attached at the end?
Absolutely. I make a motion to approve the amended ILA for the South Kitsap Community Event Center as presented, with the attachment of The Department of Commerce grant email from June 21st from Beth Robinson and Nick Bond.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
I'll take Erin on that one. She got in before you, Walt. And then all those in favor of approving this revision to the ILA and this motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, nay. All right. Motion carries, and we will sign that revision of the ILA. Let's move on to item number 5B. Mike, would you lead us through the demo of our new website?
Of course, you can't hear me, so I was escorting Nick to the sidelines, and then I will find the necessary piece here and scroll to that. Except that there isn't a scroll to that. That is a website, and okay. Now you should be looking at the new website. Let me take a quick look for to see if Cinnamon is there, and she is not, so she was not able to attend tonight. So you're going to
Mike, can I ask, since she is not here, if it wouldn't be better to postpone this then for a month and wait until the people that we've hired can walk us through it specifically, and that way if the directors have questions that can, or any comment of things that they would like to see, that can be directly spoken to her.
That's fine. I'm familiar with it and what's been done. It's more the look and feel, if you like, that is so much different than what it is that you're used to seeing. The same basic information is being loaded into the websites. And
Mike, I'm going to say let's do that. Let's have Cinnamon come on for September, and we'll ask all the directors to take a look at that website and familiarize themselves with it, and then we can give any feedback that we have to the people who are working on the website. And then let's move on to.
You got it.
Would it be possible to circulate that link so we can look at it on our own?
I have
next month's meeting?
I have provided that in the email that was sent out, but I'll send out a second email that has just that link on it. But if you want to take a look at that, it is Kitsap PFD all together.
We'll just have you send it out to the directors. Yep. All right. On to item number 6, the financial reports. Mike, would you guide us through the monthly reports?
Okay. What you're seeing is the sales tax rebate revenue summary. The revenue for the month of July was $192,000 and change, up 16% over last year. last year was still in the month of July up 10% over 2019. So that would have been a full recovery from the pandemic effects. And here we are at 7 months into the year at almost $1.2 million connected. So we're assured of having our first $2 million revenue year this year. The debt service is still the same at around $70,000. Our expenses around 18,000 and change, leaving 105, almost or $104,500 in net income to the 977 account. Any questions about that? This is the operations fund, the 968 account, which shows our expenses for the month in the left column, our performance year to date against the budget in the center column, and showing that down at the bottom, 128,000 expended versus estimated 137. The balance in the account from the original $180,000 deposited is $51,000. Since last month was, or this month was, last month rather, was $18,000. There's a little less than maybe 3 months left in what I originally deposited. What I am proposing to the board now to consider, and next month we'll take action on it. I am proposing that that I deposit the remaining $57,000 of the original budgeted amount of $237,000 to be deposited in the 968 account or transferred from the 977 account. And basically, because of expenses being higher to some degree, but you're looking at a period in which there's going to be a new director at a higher cost for the last quarter of the month, approximately 2 months that are going to be where 2 executive directors are being paid at the same time. The conclusion of the costs of the creation of the new website. All of these will contribute to a higher than anticipated expenditure. I don't think it's going to be higher than 237,000. But it's going to be higher than what was anticipated, which was somewhere between $200,000 and $210,000. So next month I will propose to make that, but I wanted the board to consider that during their deliberations for the next month. The other pages are again the summary information of what's happening with the 286 fund, the 968 operations fund, and the 977 capital projects or holding fund. The key to that is at the bottom line, the ending balance for cash, $3.8 million. And so we're still continuing to accumulate cash in the 977 fund.
All right. Are there any questions? Mike, I have a question on the budget for July 21, the 5102, the overtime pay. We have it budgeted for 833, but it's 3246. What is included in that line item?
The only thing that's included in the line item is the hours over half-time pay that I work. And that's consistently less than 100% or full-time pay, because I never have been truly working 40-hour work weeks. They're usually running between 35 and 38 hours a week. But that's what's adding that overtime pay. That's the authorized additional hours at straight time. It's not an overtime. It's not time and a half.
All right.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's move on to the blanket vouchers then. The KPFD expenses for item 6B.
Yeah, all right. This is the, whoops, went too far, sorry. This is the expense item for the month. It's noted here that Pat is absent of being able to vote on this. Legal, it's Barker Creek Construction Consulting, accounts accountability plus for bookkeeping. My expenses, actually that's July expenses. Will include the cost of attending the conference over in Spokane. And then we also have the yearly charge for the liability insurance with the a company called Endurus over in Spokane of $4,400.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve that blanket voucher?
I move approval of the blanket voucher.
I'll second.
Thank you, Walt. Thank you, Tom. That was you, Tom. Is that correct?
I think it was Phil.
Oh, Phil. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Then any discussion?
I just have a quick question. The liability insurance, is that our director's insurance, or is that true regular liability?
No, it's directors, the corporation. It's got a rider for me, but yes, that's the comprehensive liability insurance.
Okay, so it includes all. All right,
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? All right, then all those in favor of approving the blanket voucher, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Voucher is approved. On to item number 6C is the Director Stipend. This is a blanket voucher which pays all of the directors $50 for each meeting that we've been a part of. And can I have a motion to approve this blanket voucher as well?
I'll move to approve blanket voucher for Director Stipend.
Thank
Is
you,
this
Aaron.
the old one still?
This is the one we were looking at last month, but the numbers weren't right.
Yeah.
But it also still has Rick Smith on
The
it.
numbers were right. The name.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. It still has Rick on there.
Yeah, John and I aren't on there.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
I didn't even look at this. Okay, I take back my motion. How's that?
The one that was circulated looked to be correct, just that's not.
It was correct. And hang on one second. I'll show you the right one.
Yeah, Rick is not on the one we got with the other documents.
I know. It just for some reason, what I picked up from the but the right one is in there. I will get that for you. Just hang on one more minute. And Ah, for Christ's sake.
Why don't we just push it to the next meeting? Does that sound good? All right, we will do that. Just in the spirit of, I think you had the same issue last month when I wasn't here, and just to be transparent again and put all the right data up in front of people during our meeting, we'll push it to the next month.
I understand. This was fixed, and I don't know how that one got into the mix again, because I thought I had deleted that.
All right, on to 6D, the project voucher for the Paulsbo Perk invoice, to approve that for $23,434.49. Can I have a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you, Phil. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, any discussion? All right, then all those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed say nay. And the invoice has been approved to be paid. Now the same with the Port Orchard invoice for the South Kitsap project for $30,002.84. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, John. And a second?
I'll second.
Phil beat you to the punch, Walt. And so any discussion on this one? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. Again, motion carries to pay this invoice, and we will do so. On to item number 6E for the Port of Bremerton invoice approval. This is an invoice that will be paid by the Port of Bremerton, and that we will reimburse according to our schedule in the future. But that number is for $70,703.55. Can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Aaron. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Phil. And any discussion?
I don't know that my discussion's pertinent to any one of these, but I don't see the right place to put it in. Can we add as a part of this, or as part of the blanket voucher page, where we're at within the funding in each category, right? Or even some of the supporting documentation that goes along with our blanket voucher, so we know particularly what we're approving?
That is a great suggestion, John. I really like the running total. I know my memory serves that in the past, we have received kind of backup for some of those invoices, but it is noted that that was not in the packet that I at least saw this month as well. But I agree that it would be good not to put up on the screen, but for the directors to be able to go through an electronic document format if they so choose and look at the detail.
Yeah, that is kept, and it hadn't been a regular item in support, but if that's what you want to see, I can deliver that.
Just a thought. Don't do anything just for me. I guess if the whole board wants it.
No, I like that idea.
I do too. It's a great idea.
It's being done. It just hasn't been part of the documentation, but it certainly can be. That's not a problem.
I don't think we need any kind of a formal motion, but it's a quick spirit of the board is yes, please include each time. Yeah. And the running total idea is not something that we've done before, but I really like that as well. Just so that we have an ongoing, for all of us to understand where we're at, but also for the public to see how this ties into other money that has already been spent with these projects and how much is left to spend as well. So that's a great suggestion. And Mike, if you would start that for next month, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, no problem. As I said, I've been keeping that total and keeping that running log month by month. And so I'll be happy to send that out after this meeting. But yeah, I'll include it as part of the package or the packet from now on.
And so any other discussion on this particular invoice? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? And approval of the invoice for the Porter Bremerton's contract. Moving on to item number 7, the Executive Director's activity report. Just ask you to take a look at that and see where Mike is spending his time, as well as the regional facilities reports for July. I believe there was a new one that was sent out today for the Kitsap fairgrounds and then the conference center. Okay. With that, are there any other pieces that we need to speak of before we adjourn? Phil?
I have a question. It says next directors meetings is September 23rd, 2021, 5:30. That's a Thursday?
Yeah, it should be the 27th. It should be September 20. Oh, it's 27th?
Yeah.
On the website, I believe it's September 20th. At least that's what I have on my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was originally set to not conflict with a BOCC meeting because it was scheduled to meet in the commissioners. But if it's not there, it would be at the typical fourth Monday. So it will be on the 27th.
All right. And has the website been updated?
The website has been updated.
Okay. All right. So we are now on the 27th, our typical fourth Monday. So everybody please make a note of it. And we'll correct that. All right. Anything else, Mike?
Yeah, well, very quickly, the report that was sent out to you today was from the Kitsap Conference Center, and that report was very positive. They not only had events last month, they've got events booked in the next couple of months. The revenues coming up, the prospect for next year looks very good. So they're very pleased with the progress at the conference center.
All right, thank you. With that, I'd like to call this meeting, or I'd like to adjourn this meeting, and thank you everybody for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
See you next time.